Hello, welcome to the Self Learning Podcast by Dr. Sushma Singh. Let us start discussion on Chapter 9 Constitution as a Living Document. And our topic is Constitution as a Living Document. We have described our Constitution as a living document. What does that mean? Almost like a living being, this document keeps responding to the situations and circumstances arising from time to time. Like a living being, the Constitution responds to experience. In fact, that is the answer to the riddle we mentioned at the beginning about the durability of the Constitution. Even after so many changes in the society, the Constitution continues to work effectively because of this ability to be dynamic, to be open to interpretations, and the ability to respond to the changing situation. This is a hallmark of a democratic constitution. In a democracy, practices and ideas keep evolving over time, and the society engages in experiments according to these. A constitution which protects democracy and yet allows for evolution of new practices becomes not only durable but also the object of respect from the citizens. The important point is, has the Constitution been able to protect itself and protect democracy? In the last 55 years, some very critical situation arose in the politics and constitutional development of the country. We have made a brief reference to some of these in this chapter already. In terms of constitutional legal issues, the most serious question that come up again and again from 1950 was about the supremacy of the parliament. In a parliamentary democracy, the parliament represents the people and therefore it is expected to have an upper hand over both executive and judiciary. At the same time, there is the text of the Constitution and it has given powers to other organs of government. Therefore, the supremacy of the parliament has to operate within this framework. Democracy is not only about votes and people's representation, it is also about the principle of rule of law. Democracy is also about the developing institutions and working through these institutions. All the political institutions must be responsible to the people and maintain a balance with each other. Now let us discuss contribution of judiciary. During the controversy between the judiciary and the parliament thought that it had the power and responsibility to make laws for the furthering the interest of the poor, backward and the needy. The judiciary insisted that all this has to take place within the framework provided by the Constitution, and pro-people measures should not bypass legal procedures. Because once you bypass laws, even with good intentions, that can give an excuse to power holders to use their power arbitrarily. And democracy is as much about checks on arbitrary use of power as it is about the well-being of the people. The success of the working of the Indian Constitution lies in resolving these tensions. The judiciary, in its famous Keshwanand ruling, found a way out of the existing complications by turning it to the spirit of the Constitution rather than its letter. If you read the Constitution, you will not find any mention of the basic structure of the Constitution. Nowhere does the Constitution say that such and such are parts of the basic structure. In this sense, the basic structure theory is the invention of judiciary. How did it invent such a non-existent thing? And how is it that all other institutions have accepted this during the past 3 decades? Therein lies the distinction between the letter and spirit. The court came to the conclusion that in reading a text or document, we must respect the intent behind that document. A mere text of law is less important than the social circumstances and aspirations that have produced that law or document. The court was looking at the basic structure as something without which the Constitution cannot be imagined at all. This is an instance of trying to balance the letter and spirit of the Constitution. Now let us move to the next point, maturity of the political leadership. Our discussion of the role of judiciary in the paragraph above brings out one more fact. In the background of the first controversy that ranged between 1967 and 1973, the Parliament and the executive also realized that a balanced and a long-term view was necessary. After the Supreme Court gave the ruling in Keshwanand case, some attempts were made to ask the court to reconsider its ruling. When these failed, the 42nd Amendment was made and parliamentary supremacy was asserted. But the court again repeated its earlier stand in the Minerva Mill case 1980. Therefore, even 3 decades after the ruling in Keshwanand case, this ruling has dominated our interpretation of the Constitution. Political parties, political leaders, the government, and the parliament accepted the idea of inviolable basic structure. Even when there was talk about review of the Constitution, that exercise could not cross the limits set by the theory of the basic structure. When the Constitution was made, leaders and peoples of our country shared a common vision of India. In Nehru's famous speech at the time of independence, this vision was described as the tryst with destiny. In the Constituent Assembly too, all the leaders mentioned this vision: dignity and freedom of the individual, social and economic equality, well-being of all people, unity based on national integrity. This vision has not disappeared. People and leaders alike hold to the vision and hope to realize it. Therefore, the Constitution based on this vision has remained an object of respect and authority even after half a century. The basic values governing our public imagination remain intact. Now let us conclude the chapter. There can still be debates about what constitutes basic structure. There is nothing wrong in such debates. We must remember that politics in a democracy is necessarily full of debates and differences. That is a sign of diversity, liveliness, and openness. Democracy welcomes debates. At the same time, our political parties and leadership have shown maturity in setting limits to these debates, because politics is also about compromises and give and take. Extreme positions may be theoretically very correct and ideologically very attractive, but politics demands that everyone is prepared to moderate their extreme views, sharp positions, and reach a common minimum ground. Only then democratic politics becomes possible. Politicians and the people of India have understood and practiced these skills. That has made the experience of working of the democratic constitution quite successful. Among the different organs of the government, there will always be competition over which one is more important than the others. They will also always fight over what constitutes the welfare of the people. But in the last instance, the final authority lies with the people. People, their freedoms, and their well-being constitute the purpose of democracy and also the outcome of democratic politics. Now let us wind up the session, and we have come to the end of the chapter. Thank you very much for engaging yourself with the Self Learning Podcast.